I've been hanging with you for a while, so I knew.
No. We should just take notes from that. Are we all set? All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming together. Today is a day of celebration for millions of families around the country. Unfortunately, here in New York, we're struggling in the aftermath of a shooting that occurred just steps from where we are right now. I want to thank my wife, Evelyn, Councilmember Keith Powers, Edwin Raymond, and William Allen for joining me here today to talk about what's on all of our minds right now, which is how we're going to address gun violence here in New York City. Three people, including a toddler, were shot just steps from where we are right now. There were innocent bystanders of a violent dispute that had nothing to do with them. And Times Square, where we are right now, is an iconic place in the greatest city in the world. It's a place that millions of people visit every single year. But I want to zoom out for a moment to reflect on where we are as a city right now and our past over the last number of years. Our city struggled through a rampant crime wave in the 70s and 80s, but we fought back and recovered. This city was the site of the greatest terrorist attack, the most devastating terrorist attack in American history, and first responders, policemen, firefighters all came to our rescue. COVID hit New York City worse than any place else in our country, and it was our essential workers and heroic healthcare workers who have now led us to the cusp of recovery. This is a city that has triumphed time and time again over violence and fear, and the world will watch as we do it again. Now back to where we're standing here in Times Square. This is a place that's iconic to so many New Yorkers, but it's also blocks away from where my wife Evelyn and I live. We take our family and our children for walks every day just blocks from here. There's nothing more fundamental than the ability to walk in your own neighborhood with your family without fear. And if the city cannot stop shootings in Times Square, what does that say about what's happening in black and brown communities throughout our city where we are underinvesting and we know that rates of gun violence are higher? The truth is that New York City cannot afford to defund the police. And when I talk to New Yorkers, I get a very different message every single day. New Yorkers are concerned about rising rates of violent crime, petty crime, street homelessness. This is what we are seeing. And we need our city's leaders to step up right now. As our city does recover and reopen, we know that everything is contingent upon whether our streets and our subways are safe, whether people can come together without fear in a place like this. And we know what happens in New York City when crime rates rise and stay too high. This investment occurs throughout the city, particularly in struggling neighborhoods. Tourism dries up, costing us hundreds of thousands of jobs. And distrust builds between the NYPD and the communities that they serve. My fellow New Yorkers, if there's one thing I want to say to you, it is this. Nothing works in our city without public safety. And for public safety, we need the police. My message to the NYPD is this: New York needs you. Your city needs you. We need you to do your jobs professionally, responsibly, and justly. And as you do these things, the people of New York will have your backs. I will have your back. Defund the police is wrong for New York City. So what must we do instead? We cannot fall into the trap of imagining that there is a false choice between keeping our people safe and evolving the NYPD. The fact is that we cannot do one without the other. My number one priority as your mayor will be keeping our people and our families safe every single day. I will receive a daily briefing on the crime statistics of the day before from my deputy mayor of public safety and police commissioner, and we will share these stats with the public. We will make progress together and you will see it in real time. My administration will appoint reform-minded officers to help get guns out of our communities. We will inaugurate a new anti-violence and community safety unit that will consist of specially trained officers with clean records in plain clothes who will be held to higher standards. And we will temporarily assign more police officers to the communities that are being most affected by gun violence right now. We will also boost the NYPD Intelligence Division's ability to disrupt the iron pipeline, which is bringing illegal firearms from other parts of the country into our own. We have to cut them off before they arrive in our boroughs. And we all know that common sense gun safety regulations in other parts of the country affect us here in New York. I will stand with Chuck Schumer and do everything in our power to help get this legislation passed so that people can't get easy access to guns someplace else and then bring them to our city. There are other things that we can do to help make our city's streets safer right now. I have pledged to reduce street homelessness by 50% or more in my first term. People do not belong sleeping in our streets. It's wrong for them and it's wrong for our city. We can change this. New York City's comeback has begun, but we cannot allow it to be derailed by violence. We have to rebuild our city back safer, healthier, and build with energy and opportunity. We have to restore our city with hope, and hope begins with safety. Thank you all so much for being here today. And now I'd like to bring up the city councilman who represents this part of New York City, Keith Powers. Come on up, Keith.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And unfortunately, I have to be standing here today. I am Keith Powers. I'm the city council member who represents Times Square. And I just stood here in my district a few weeks ago as we were talking about the comeback. And I was talking about new ideas that we could do in New York City to bring people back and to boost tourism and to really boost confidence in the city. But the underpinning of all of that is making sure that New Yorkers feel safe when they want to return here. And whether you are a visitor or you are somebody who lives here and spends all your time here and looking to come back to work, we have one goal in this city, and that's to keep you safe. And what we saw on the news last night was horrifying, and it is impossible to ignore that there was a child who was the victim of gun violence yesterday, and that we are standing here on Mother's Day having to talk about it once again. And it's also impossible to ignore, as Andrew said, that what happened here was a one-time incident, but there's an epidemic of gun violence in this city that hurts some other communities more than my own. And that the solution starts at the federal level, but here at the city, we have to stop the illegal guns that make their way onto our street. We have to stop individuals from using them against each other, and we have to do everything in our power, marshal all our energy and efforts right now to stop gun violence, bring this city back the way it deserves. For gun violence, to be honest, right now. And I appreciate Andrew's commitment, his ideas, but his willingness to be out here on Mother's Day today, and happy Mother's Day, Evelyn, to talk about an issue that is on the mind of almost every single New Yorker right now. So thank you for being out here, and I am standing here to make sure that New Yorkers and my constituents know I'm committed to safety as well. Thank you.
My name is William Allen, and I'm really happy to be here today. But I'm really here today because I know a lady up in Harlem who lost a son to gun violence and 3 nephews. I want to wish her a happy Mother's Day because that lady is my mother. And so my family has experienced gun violence as you can never imagine up in Harlem. This issue we really have to address. And the first gun violence happened to my brother back in the 1970s. We were little teenagers. And for some reason, this thing has not stopped. I know women like Jackie Rowe Adams up in Harlem is doing some tremendous work, but organizations like hers, Harlem Mothers Save, needs more help. It needs a mayor who's going to really address these issues, be in the communities, and making sure there is cooperation between police and community to address this issue once and for all. Again, as Keith Powers said, if it happened here in Times Square, it's happening all around our city. It's a story that we hear and see every single day. But this story has to end today, and it has to end now. Thank you.
All right, good morning. My name is Edwin Raymond, and I'm a candidate for City Council in the 40th District in Brooklyn. I'll start by saying that my heart and prayer goes out to those who are injured and their families. Ever since last year, we've had an increase in gun violence and homicides. That's 80% increase in those who are shot, and 17% rise in homicides. If you compare it to 2019 numbers, that's 93% and 36% respectively. So the numbers are not going in the right direction. Many will use this to confirm their biases that they have against police reform. And as someone who's critical of police policy and tactics, I'm telling you that there is no correlation. The rise in the numbers start months before we see unprecedented protests and the policies that follow. Therefore, those who call for unfettered, quota-driven arrests, summonses, stop and frisk, that is not the way. Law enforcement does have a legitimate function in society, and we have to use surgical methods to go after the issues. We need a multifaceted, collaborative approach to policing. You know, I am a 13-year law enforcement official, and I can confirm that we can get this done. I agree with many of the plans that Yang has. I plan to get into City Hall and drive forward, as the public safety chair, drive forward the balance between proper policing without having to trample people's rights. As a black man, I've been on all sides of this. I've been on the receiving ends of over-aggressive policing, and at the same time, I've been that law enforcement official with the responsibility of stopping gun violence. I assure you we can get this done. We have to put the resources where they need to go, and we can accomplish this mission. Thank you.
Questions? Chris?
Yeah. You also have a difference between your anti-crime, anti-gun unit, and Eric Adams' ideas for each state plain clothes.
We have about 36,000 police officers. We had an anti-crime plainclothes unit until fairly recently. So inaugurating a new anti-violence and community safety unit would involve taking officers who are specially trained, have clean records, and are the right fit for the mission to join this unit and work with community leaders to help get guns out. But it doesn't necessarily need that you need to commit more funding because, again, we have 36,000 officers, and I'm sure that we have officers that would be an ideal fit for this unit.
Gun violence that started like last year and address that.
Sorry, what's that?
What do you attribute the increase in gun violence that we've seen last year to address that?
I think we all can sense why gun violence is on the rise here in New York City because life has been upended. Schools have been closed for months and months. Our streets are empty, storefronts are darkened, subway ridership is down 2/3. So in that environment, unfortunately, violence and even shootings are on the rise, not just here in New York, frankly, but around the country. I mean, this is not a phenomenon that's unique to New York, but we're going to get it under control here in New York. And I think that the shootings are a result of the impact that COVID has had on our way of life and on jobs and our economy.
When people start traveling now and they're looking to get out of their communities and come to New York City, what would you tell them after you get the shooting? Is Times Square safe?
Well, millions of people are going to visit New York City in the coming months and stand right here where I am in Times Square. Maybe not millions in this precise spot, but they'll be safe. This is still a wonderful place to visit. They should come see it for themselves. But we certainly shouldn't let one incident deter people from coming and enjoying themselves. And again, Evelyn and I live just a few blocks from here. Nothing's going to stop us from still walking the same blocks that we always walk. I'll come back to that in a sec. Another question, Jake?
Aaron?
talk about we can't afford to defund the police? I mean, do you consider? Are you talking about reversing the reduction in headcount that happened last year, or are you going to keep that as is?
Well, we need to take the resources that are currently allocated to the NYPD and commit them to measures that will actually help reduce gun violence and make us safer. The defund the police movement is committed to reducing funds by significant levels. I've heard anywhere from between $1 and $3 billion. I don't think that's the right approach, and I don't believe most New Yorkers think that's the right approach.
Commissioner said last night that some policies, criminal justice policies, were responsible for the rise of gun violence, bail reform, things like that. Do you think those policies need to roll back?
I'm someone who follows the facts, so what we need to do is dig in and see whether there are other aspects of recent changes that may be affecting gun violence in different ways. And if the facts show that we have to consider making further changes, we should.
Sorry for this one. Okay. The Daily Mail says Twitter's outrage that you're using the S word in a church town hall. I came here from 21 Columbia. I didn't know.
No, I'll come back to that one. I'll come back to that.
I don't think we're on topic. Okay.
Thank you all. Happy Mother's Day. Call your moms, hug your moms.
I had to.
I'd like to speak to that question.
Oh, sure. Wait. Sorry. The one on the police, Edwin Raymond, would like to say something. Go ahead, Edwin.
Yeah. So as I said earlier, as someone who's critical of police tactics, I make it my duty to meticulously follow the crime patterns and trends, and can confirm that the spike starts in March of 2020, months before we get different policies and legislation from the City Council in July. All right, this is before George Floyd, this is before Ahmaud Arbery, this is before Breonna Taylor, this is before the wave of unprecedented protests that we saw last year throughout the nation and throughout the world. Starts in March of 2020. So this idea, again, that's confirmation bias, all right? This idea to use this spike and draw a correlation with change in policy that happens months later, it doesn't make sense chronologically, and it's wrong.
Thank you all again. Thank you for being here. Happy Mother's Day. Thank you all.
See you guys. Hi, guys. Yeah, you too. I don't have one on me, but you want to give my email. Oh, you want to stop, man? All right. Excuse me.
No, you're right. Take my mic.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, stream. We're currently here in Times Square. For those that didn't hear, there was a shooting here yesterday between like two gunmen, and it ended up striking 3 people, including a 3-year-old girl. But thank you all for tuning in. Michi says, did I make it or miss it? Yes, Yang did do shout-outs yesterday. So Nelly, Deborah, and Pradumya all got shout-outs. It actually just ended, Michi.
Take my phone. It's better.
Yes, Abdul, Yang does have an event. And it's good to see you, Abdul. I met Abdul yesterday. But yes, he has a youth rally next Saturday. So for those who aren't aware, this is going to be... I am actually heading back home tonight. So this is going to be my last event that I'll be covering in person for now, though. I honestly might be back next weekend. I just need to find a place to stay. But yeah, I think he did good, Michi. He took a pretty bold stance, maybe, for I don't know if it's bold, but just like he made it clear that he's not like defund. He's not like down with the defund the police movement. Like, you know, that's basically what it was. So there was actually originally going to be no event scheduled for today, but because of the... Hey, how's it going? What's your name?
Michael, that's in Iowa.
Okay. Michael Leone? Okay. All right, nice to meet you. You on Twitter? Let me see if I can find you.
I couldn't tell. Is that sad?
Is it?
It's just really hard to tell sometimes if he's masked.
Dude, I don't think it is.
Yeah.
It's not. It just looks like him.
Yeah.
That is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
What's your name on here?
At Michael Prince.
Michael Pren?
Prins.
Hey.
Oh, and I have some of those bumper stickers if you want some.
Oh, really? Yeah, I actually have some too. Like, cause Nell, he keeps handing them all out because he has like 500 or something to give away.
Yeah.
Do you live here in New York?
Yeah.
Nice. So you've been like canvassing and all that stuff?
Yeah, they're in there.
How's that like? How's that going? Like, what type of like? What do you hear from like people like that you talk to? Like, what issues are they concerned about?
Gosh. Yeah, housing. I mean, I've only talked to like a handful because most people don't actually end up answering the phones.
That's true.
Yeah, it seems like we were in an area in Chinatown. Like that was the one where I actually did canvassing door to door, and it seemed like people under 60 weren't that interested, like in really talking at all.
Yeah.
They'd, or people over 60. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. The numbers, you're kind of right. I kind of agree with you. So, but that was probably me who was pushing that. I also think it's a very nuanced issue. Like, it depends what you mean by, like, defunding. Because Yang pretty much said, like, I support like reallocating. Like it's confusing. Like a lot of people don't even know what defund the police even really means. Let me see. Have I actually ever wrote that Andrew supports defund? This is what I wrote on May 2nd, which was a week ago. I tweeted, Yang hasn't embraced the quote-unquote defund movement, but he certainly supports cutting some funding and reallocating that money towards mental health and substance abuse resources. So it's just confusing. Like in April 11th, I wrote, the defund movement is probably against things like funding the anti-Asian hate crimes task force, so of course Yang isn't going to support the quote-unquote defund movement. That doesn't mean he supports... This is the part that might be iffy. That doesn't mean he doesn't support shifting money away from the NYPD. He does. I would just say, instead of shifting money away, shifting money towards. Because it's not really about, like... Even if you keep the substance abuse, like, resources or the mental health stuff as, like, an NYPD department, it's technically not, like, it's technically reallocation. So I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, I'm sure they will. But honestly, it's a good message. It's going to, like, this press conference that Yang did here was important because it makes, like, no bones about it, like, what his position is. And you have candidates like Eric Adams, who has been, quote-unquote, rising in the polls. So it looks like there goes Andrew off and about through the streets of New York City.
But I mean, like, dude, it's just, look.
But, yeah, I think... Yeah, I think the word it's really confusing, Michi. I think the word to use is reallocation. Doesn't support defunding, but supports reallocation of some funds. All right, I think that's it. There goes Andrew and team.
Why are you commenting?
All right, stream. Well, I think this wraps up our stream here. From Times Square, New York, on The Matt Show. Thank you for tuning in. Eric Adams just tweeted about gun violence. See, that's how you know, like, Andrew's press conference was good. Like, Eric Adams literally just made a whole tweet thread about how, like, I got the notification. It was like, last night I was in Times Square to address the shooting. Like, you don't think it's a coincidence that tweet thread comes out like 15 minutes after Andrew has a press conference where there's like 15 different news crews here? And they're hearing him say, like, New York City cannot afford to defund the police. Yeah, it's crazy. But I think this wraps it up. Live from Times Square, New York. This is the Matt Skidmore Show. And we shall see you all next time. Make sure you phone bank. Make sure you donate. Yeah, sorry you missed it, DD Jix. But you can watch the replay. We're going to be back in New York sometime soon. This is our last stream for at least a few days. We shall see you all sometime soon. Are we getting a driving home stream? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not. We'll see. All right. Take care, everybody. Make sure you donate. Make sure you volunteer. Goodbye. 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 Take care. One final message to all the mothers watching. Have a blessed Mother's Day.